That's all well and good, Darius, but comping an entire check every time a guest is displeased is bad for the bottom line, I said, doing my best to keep a neutral expression when all I wanted to do was bang my forehead on the desk in front of me. He was the 5th person I'd interviewed that morning for the management position at our tiki bar, and I was ready for a drink. Or 3. How else might you manage the situation? The middle-aged warlock sitting across from me twiddled his handlebar mustache and stared down his nose at me, one bushy brown brow raised. His plaid linen suit and matching ivy cap made him look more like he was there to teach a Latin class than apply for a bar manager's position.
"The guest is always right,"
he replied with a self-righteous glare.
"If they're not pleased, they shouldn't have to pay."
The righteous harumph he added to the end did it. I flipped the manila folder holding his resume closed and gave him what I was certain was the last of my patient smiles. "Thank you very much, then," I told him as I pushed up from the comfy leather office chair I'd been sitting in for the last 2 hours. "I don't think we'd be a good match, but I appreciate your time." For a second, I didn't think he was going to take the hint. After a few moments, though, he stood as well, his displeasure obvious from the scowl marring his round face.
"You're making a huge mistake. This resort would be lucky to have me."
"Then we'll have to agree to disagree," I said, giving him my first real, albeit snarky, smile of the interview as I motioned to the office door. "We need a manager able to walk the fine line between guest satisfaction and financial solvency. Giving away meals to every person who doesn't think their drink has enough booze in it would put us bankrupt. Have a nice day." As soon as he left the room, I collapsed back into the chair and rolled my head on my shoulders, then put a giant black X on his folder with my Sharpie. "That guy was a tool," Tempest, my fox familiar, said from her bed beside me. "Where did Blake get these applications from? ResortRejects.com?" I huffed a breath out through my nose and took a sip of my water, curling my nose when the tepid liquid hit my mouth. Blake was the director of the resort, as well as my ex. That was all water under the bridge, though, and we'd reached a point where we were friends again. "Apparently," I said, scraping the 5 black-X'd manila folders in front of me into a pile and stuffing them into the top desk drawer. "Come on. I need to stretch my legs and let the wind blow away the unique stench of ignorance, arrogance, and desperation that I've been stewing in for the last 2 hours. I can't believe I'm doing this on my day off." "Good. I'm starving," she replied, hopping up from her bed and bouncing along behind me. "It's already lunchtime, and we barely ate any breakfast." My stomach gave an answering growl as we stepped out of the office and into the bar area of the tiki. Bob, our Bigfoot bartender and one of my best friends, arched a brow at me as I rubbed a hand over my face.
"I assume from the way the nutty professor stormed out of here that he didn't get the job?"
"You assume right," I replied. "If it were up to him, every person who so much as hinted at displeasure would eat and drink for free."
"Sounds like my kind of manager,"
Stan, a regular who happened to be a Cupid, said, grinning and wagging his brows. "Trust me, he wasn't," I said, smiling back. "He wanted to propose a dress code for the tiki bar." Considering it wasn't uncommon for Stan to show up in his work clothes, which consisted of his bow and quiver and a cloth diaper, loincloth, the policy shift wouldn't have worked so well for him. He'd been miffed enough when I'd put a moratorium on the bow because nobody needed to be shot with a love arrow when he'd had too many and was feeling the whole "I love you guys" thing at closing time. The loincloth, however, was fine with me. We were a tiki bar on a beach. It covered a whole lot more than the banana hammocks some of the guys insisted on wearing for bathing suits.